InvestorIdeas.com podcast. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcast, looking at cannabis news, stocks to watch, as well as insights from thought leaders and experts. Today's podcast, I interview Nick Kovacevic, who is the CEO and founder of KuchCo Holdings Incorporated, trading on the OTC as KSHB. Nick and I discuss his company's story and how he has had to adapt to the market over the past 10 years he's been in the industry. We also go into KuchCo's recent announcement of entering into a manufacturing and distribution agreement with Sungrown Packaging LLC, a California-based provider of sustainable customized packaging solutions to the cannabis industry.
So today I'm speaking with Nick Kovacevic, who's the CEO of Kuch Holdings Incorporated. Nick, it's fantastic to have you here on the podcast. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the cannabis ancillary space, and as well a little bit about KuchCo Holdings?
Yeah, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And, the company started in 2010, so the story goes back almost a decade. We had an idea to get into this cannabis industry because at the time we saw a huge opportunity. My business partner and I, we know each other from high school. We, had done a few other businesses together, including one that he had started in college. And as a couple of young entrepreneurs looking for opportunity, the cannabis industry seemed like the right place. It was an industry that was emerging. It was brand new. It was taboo. And as a result, a lot of people weren't putting any focus or attention to it. And we saw an opportunity to target an audience that really wasn't being targeted. And so we wanted to get into the space. The question was how. And I have a background, growing up under my dad, who was a assistant district attorney and a prosecutor, is also a judge. He used to put people in prison for marijuana. And so we had a little reluctancy to necessarily jump in head first and touch the plant in the form of a grow or a retail operation, but rather saw an opportunity in the packaging side of it to be able to get involved in every transaction without directly touching the plant itself. We felt that there was a lot less risk involved. And so that's how the company was born. At the time, it was called Kuch Bottles because we started by selling compliant, child-resistant, child-safe pop-top bottles. So that was the name. That was the game. We ordered a container of these vials, and we literally started going door-to-door selling them. That was the beginning, early days. And we've grown the business significantly since then. We've got now 250 employees nearly across 8 states and 3 countries. Last quarter, we did $35 million in sales. We've sold over 1 billion units. We still do packaging. It's at our core, but we've also diversified into 4 broader product categories. Packaging, labeling is one. Vape is another. Push Energy, which is our gases and solvents, and our natural products is our third, and then papers and supplies is our 4th product bucket. And we target all of these products directly to businesses that operate in the cannabis and CBD industry. And this year already, we've serviced over 6,000 businesses with these various products that they need on a regular basis.
That's a fantastic story for your guys' company. There's a bunch of stuff I want to get into there, but I'll start right away just with being in the ancillary market. And again, you're not touching the plant. Because packaging has become such a huge thing state by state as well as country by country, everyone sort of has different regulations surrounding what they want as far as child-proofing, as far as environmental, all those factors to consider. How difficult is that for your company to navigate when you are in multiple states as well as in multiple countries? Do you have to change your product around for each environment, or have you figured out a way to adapt your single products to all those environments?
Yeah, it's a very complex industry to navigate for those reasons you pointed to. The rules and regulations they vary in each state, and they're very nuanced as well. So you have to really be in tune with the market and understanding the different nuances and where the regulations are evolving to make sure that you always have the right product portfolio that meets and exceeds the regulatory compliance metrics that are put in place. So that's part of our core expertise. It's something that we've always done, obviously starting here in California, which at the time actually did not have stringent requirements around packaging or labeling. Colorado was really the first state to do that in 2014, followed by virtually every other rec state that's come online: Washington, Oregon, Alaska, Nevada, California, Massachusetts, etc. And then Canada as well. They've got their own set of very stringent requirements up there, regulated by Health Canada. So we have to understand them. We have to build product sets around them. We have to know how to advise our clients, especially ones that are looking to operate in multiple markets, what the best strategy is. Do you go with one, more restrictive design, or do you use a couple different, family of designs, so to speak, that might work across multiple markets and give you better exposure in some where you're allowed, and more restrictive exposure in others. So there's different strategies, and obviously it's part of our core expertise, which is why a lot of folks come to us to help navigate that. And it's something that's a differentiator, from traditional packaging companies, that they just don't understand the space. They don't have the right products, and they don't know how to navigate these nuances that we have proven to be able to do so.
Yeah, that sounds like a good advantage to have in the space. One thing I did want to talk about as well, just while we're on the subject of packaging very specifically, you guys did a pretty recent deal with Sungrown Packaging to do the biodegradable and focus on more the environmental aspects. How big of a factor is that becoming in the ancillary market of the industry? Is sort of the environmental aspect becoming more of a thing from regulations, or is it more of a thing even just from consumer demands?
So we've always been a pioneer in the industry. We were one of the first folks pushing compliant, regulated packaging, wanting to advocate for good regulation, not only because obviously it would help our business, but really help the industry as a whole. The industry is battling a negative stigma, and in order to help overcome that, right, the last thing that we would need is negative publicity around accidental child ingestion. So we felt that packaging requirements that included child resistancy were key. We have always advocated for that. And so to answer your question, I think it's unfolding in right now in front of us, where we've gone from basically a need to create professional solutions that are compliant and child safe, and that was step one. And the industry has been able to do that, and that's first and foremost. Now, step two is, can you do that while also doing it in an eco-friendly and sustainable fashion? And again, we're trying to be the pioneer that leads the industry into that next chapter, hence the partnership with Sungrown. We're now offering, through Sungrown's manufacturing, a proprietary, child-resistant, biodegradable, and compostable box. We can brand it, we can print on it, we have different shapes and sizes. It's a great solution for many different cannabis items, but it's one of a whole family of eco-friendly and sustainable products that we intend to offer to the market. We announced a few months ago a great partnership with iEcho. Bob Mears, the chairman there, was the former CEO of Lululemon and Reebok, and has seen a lot of plastic waste in those industries, and he's tackling the problem on multiple fronts, but we're their official and exclusive partner to tackle this issue in the cannabis space. So we're very excited about that, and we've got several products that we're going to be rolling out through that partnership as well. So our goal is to really create eco-friendly solutions for every different type of product that needs to be packaged in this industry, ultimately giving our customers, who are businesses, a choice if they want to participate and be a part of an eco-friendly, sustainable movement. And they're also getting pressure from their customers, who are the consumers, who are actually asking for these types of solutions. So it's starting to move in that direction. Again, we want to be pioneering. We want to be pushing it to where we want it to go, which is ultimately regulated, child-safe solutions that are also environmentally sustainable.
Yeah, that sounds like you're checking all the boxes for the future of the industry. I'd like to talk a little bit about, really, it's somewhat stupid, but it is also an element in the industry as well. You're one of the younger CEOs in the cannabis space, and being sort of in the younger age as well, and it's an emerging market. What have you found have been some of the advantages and disadvantages of being sort of the younger guy in this space moving forward, and what you found so far?
Yeah, I feel like I'm older because the cannabis industry, we always joke, is like dog years. I mean, it's, you've been in here a year, it feels like 5 or 6. Moves that fast, right? There's a lot happening, and our company's growing, almost 250% annually. Most industries would be thrilled to get 25% annual growth. So it's a whole different gear. And that requires me to be on at all times, right? I have to understand what's happening in the market, understand what's happening with the business, driving strategy, driving process and operational excellence. And so I've learned a lot. I've, obviously become an expert in the industry itself, and that's allowed me to formulate a strategy around the business. And then, every good business has to have basic business fundamental principles of operational excellence and execution. So that's required me to learn a lot about running a business, right? A distribution business, a business that leverages technology. And then we're also a public company. So I've had to learn all about running a public company and how to do that side of the business, the public relations, investor relations, and capital structure, capital management, fundraising. So it's been really exciting to be able to learn all of this at a very young age. I feel like learning on the job is ultimately the most effective training. And luckily I picked stuff up very quickly, but I've leaned on mentors and advisors. Here at the company, we have an independent board of directors. We pride ourselves on strong corporate governance, leaning on best-in-class partners, whether it's finance partners, legal partners. We've engaged various consultants and firms to help us along the way. So, really knowing what you don't know, and making sure that you're getting the right team around you that does know, and then embracing change is another big thing, and making sure that you're constantly yearning for growth. And I feel like there's always an opportunity to grow as a person and professionally, and this industry is great because it just accelerates that.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that because I've heard that from a few different people. A few people have that joke of, yeah, this sort of dog years in the cannabis industry and getting gray hairs after only a couple years in. With that in mind, how important or how necessary do you think it is to be a constantly evolving company in this space? Just because I know that there are some companies that are still trying to go about this in the old business model sense, and I personally don't see that as a smart strategy moving forward because it does adapt and change so consistently.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a nice vantage point because we've been in the industry since 2010, and most of the companies you see today, were founded in 2014 to 2017, kind of right when the capital markets started to open up for the industry. So we're a little bit older, and so we've got the perspective of how this thing has changed and evolved. And it's continuing to change and evolve. And so the one thing that I always remind my team, the one thing that they can count on is change. They can count on things are going to be different. And so it'd be stupid for us to sit back and say, hey, here's the way we do things, and here's the way we're going to continue to do things, for the next year or 2 years or 3 years, knowing that the world around us is going to change once or twice or 3 times over in that same time period. So we want to execute, we want to move fast, we want to go after where we see the opportunities are, but we always want to be mindful of the macro landscape and making sure that the company's always going after the most high value activities. This industry, you can open 10 doors and you're going to find opportunity and you're going to find growth in all 10. But we want to open the doors that are leading to 1,000% growth and ultra high value opportunity versus the doors that are leading to only 20% growth and low value opportunities. So it's a good problem to have all these opportunities and doors to open, but it's a problem nonetheless. And so we have to approach it in that manner. We have to be diligent and sharp about where we spend our efforts. The resources are limited, and today we've done a good job. We've pivoted several times, like any business needs to do, but we've got ourselves in a nice lane, and we're now putting a renewed focus on execution of our core business now that we've found this lane, and knowing that, of course, at any point in time, we may need to turn the wheel left or turn the wheel right as deemed appropriate by what the market dictates.
Yeah, that sounds like you guys are at least paying attention to what's been going on and having that, I guess, 10-year advantage or 9-year advantage at this point. I can see that being a strong foundation for you guys. So based right now, you guys are in 8 states and 3 countries, I believe is what you said at the start?
That's where we have physical employees, boots on the ground. We do sell product into every legal state, and we've sold into over a dozen countries as well. So, but we have boots on the ground, either staff members, sales folks, purchasing folks, or facilities in 8 states and 3 countries. So it's pretty amazing to see how it's grown.
Perfect. So with that in mind, what are some of the biggest areas you think are going to be the huge sort of market booms in maybe the next year? Or what places do you see a lot of potential for expansion as far as your sales goes for the ancillary market?
So we're seeing a lot of traction in every new recreational market that comes online. The most recent additions were in October of last year, Canada opening up for recreational adult use, and Massachusetts in November. Massachusetts is just a phenomenal story. We did about $400,000 in sales in our Q1, which during our Q1, right toward the end, is when the first adult use stores opened up. That really catapulted us into Q2, where we saw those sales go from $400,000 up to almost $1 million just 1 quarter later. And here we are sitting in our Q3. We just did $1 million almost in Massachusetts in Q2. Yet we're planning to then yet again double here in Q3 and maybe do about $2 million. So that's how quickly these markets can come online. You're not talking about 100% growth annually. You're talking about 100% growth quarterly, sequentially. It's just insane to even think about. But these markets, when they come online in a very big way. And so we have to be prepared. Massachusetts, we put 66,000 square feet of warehouse there. Do we need that today? Doing $1 or $2 million a quarter? No, but I guarantee you, in 3 or 4 quarters, we're going to be very glad we put that type of infrastructure. So the market dynamics are really fun, but you have to be careful, because if you set up the infrastructure too early, you might be hung out to dry. If you get to the market too late, you might have missed your window of opportunity. So again, you gotta have your nose to the ground. You gotta your pulse on the industry. You gotta know which way the wind's blowing, whatever you want to call it. And again, our secret sauce is being entrenched, understanding that flow, and it's a competitive advantage because we're competing against a lot of companies that aren't all in yet on the space, and they're in traditional industries and they're trying to dabble, and they just can't compete with us until things really evolve and mature, which, as we're seeing the way that cannabis is being rolled out in the U.S., could take a very long time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's good to hear, though. I know a lot of people have been involved in Massachusetts, and a few of the people I've interviewed, that's been a big topic of discussion because it is growing so aggressively. Sort of just because we are Investor Ideas, we focus on investor information. In the ancillary space specifically, where you guys are based, what are some of the biggest takeaways you think investors should focus on when considering investing in an ancillary business, or what things should they look for as negatives? What things should they look for as positives when looking at that space specifically?
Yeah, so we'll start with the positives. The positives are, number one, there's reduced risk. I think the risk, if you're operating a state legal cannabis business compliantly, is very low, but there's risk nonetheless because you're essentially violating federal law. As long as cannabis remains a Schedule I drug, it's federally illegal. Every single day that you're touching the plant, you're violating that law. So your risk is less if you're not touching the plant, like an ancillary business is designed not to do. You also have the benefit of a better taxation. You get normal tax treatment, whereas businesses that touch the plant today, as cannabis remains federally illegal, are subject to 280E, which is very onerous and can basically eliminate your profits and put you into a major tax disadvantage. So you have the benefit there. You've also got the benefit of getting economies to scale. So one of the unique things about how cannabis is being regulated here in the U.S. is it's being regulated state by state, and there's no interstate commerce allowed. So you can't get economies to scale by, say, putting 1 million square feet of production of cannabis or grow, whatever you want to call it, in Colorado, and then shipping that product to California or Oregon or Massachusetts. You actually have to replicate the production in each state you intend to sell. So a separate production facility in California, a separate production facility in Oregon, so on and so forth. Well, in addition to that being very costly and time and taking up a lot of time, it also does not give you those economies of scale benefits to where you can get the big size and get the efficiencies by shipping. So touching the plant, you're at a disadvantage, whereas ancillary businesses, they can ship across state lines. We can ship our product anywhere in the globe because none of it contains THC or CBD. So there's a lot of advantages in ancillary business, and the disadvantages, I would say, is the perception. So you have a business like ours, and we do a lot of packaging, and people say, "Oh, well, why can't anyone do that?" And if you're as a layman on the outside looking in, it's a valid question, right? Not understanding all of the dynamics at play here, as we've kind of discussed. Kind of positioning ourselves, in the mix to where we can succeed where others can't. Portfolio of proprietary products that we've been developing. That's also another long-term defensibility mechanism. So there's other things you can do, but as a business that's essentially selling other products that are available through other traditional industries, you get subject to that type of scrutiny. Also, you don't have the regulatory barriers that some of these plant-touching businesses do. So, it's hard to navigate the red tape, but if you're one of the people that can navigate it, and you can essentially establish yourself as one of X players in a market, one of 13 or one of 10 or one of 25, depending on the state, well, you've got a huge advantage because you're only competing against a limited fixed number of other folks, and you basically can just carve out your market share. Whereas we're operating more in a free market. We're competing against anybody and everybody, and we're having to compete on price. We're having to compete on service on a daily basis. And so there's disadvantages and advantages. Ultimately, we like the side of the business that we're on. We feel that we're able to scale much faster because of those dynamics. We are excited that we'll be able to list the company on a major U.S. exchange at some point as well, because we don't violate the federal law. So there's some things that we can do that could be huge catalysts and big unlocks for our business growth that businesses that touch the plant don't. But at the end of the day, it's a trade-off, and so you got to kind of pick where you think you can be most effective and what your risk appetite is and what your capital structure is, and determine where you want to play in the marketplace.
That was a great answer. I'm really glad you addressed that sort of why can't anyone do this factor, because, you do see in the cannabis space in general, there's tons of people from all other industries jumping in every day, and a lot of them don't seem to be fully aware of what exactly they're jumping into. It just seems to be the expectation of, there's money involved and that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
So I guess just in closing, I'd just like to talk about sort of 2019 expectations. A big thing, obviously, I assume it will affect you guys quite dramatically for packaging, is going to be the consumables and beverages coming online in Canada, hopefully in October. There still is not really anything guaranteed about that, as well as, I assume, expanding into some of the rec states like Massachusetts and letting that grow. What are the biggest sort of goals and expectations for your company this year, and where do you see sort of the big moments for 2019 happening?
Well, you hit it on the head with the Canada thing. Our business is built around really, vape and some of these novel form factors that have yet to come online, and everybody's predicting that to happen in October of 2019. So we're preparing for that. Our customers are preparing for that, and we should see a big unlock in Canada should that go through. Also, like you mentioned, Massachusetts and markets like Michigan that recently voted in, we're seeing tremendous growth in those markets. The other thing is, here in our home state of California, where we started the business, it's our biggest market by far. And the market here is huge, but the market has a lot of issues. And one of the issues that the market has is it has a gray market and a black market problem. There's a lot of dispensaries left over from the legacy Proposition 215 model that was supposed to be transitioned out starting January 1st of 2018, but it's taking much longer than anticipated. I've got my own thoughts into how the state could accelerate that using a dual-pronged method of granting more licenses and allowing free enterprise to do some of the ousting of the black market while also bringing in more law enforcement to crack down on the illicit operators. But whatever strategies they're working on and doing, it's not really coming together quick enough for what most operators would like to see. We'd like to see more activity here in California happen in the legal channels versus the gray markets and the illicit channels. And one of the things that we're going to look to see this year is how well the state can effectively help facilitate that through both issuing more licenses and cracking down on illegal operators. So California is something that we're going to continue to watch in regards to those dynamics. And then for our business, we sell a lot of different products across a lot of different categories. So we're constantly looking at more ways to add value to our product portfolio, add value to our client base, and what other high growth verticals we can diversify the business into. And we've been able to get to a certain size and scale where now we don't have to necessarily make acquisitions. We can launch a lot of these new initiatives and new products ourselves through our own network. We've got a very large network of customers. We've serviced over 6,000 businesses year to date, fiscal year to date. We've got 1,000 businesses that we have assigned to sales reps. We have the largest sales force in the industry. So we can go out there, we can develop relationships, we can start to sell products, doesn't matter which ones, and then we can essentially cross-sell into other categories. And our cross-selling metrics are very important to us. It's something that we watch on a regular basis and make sure that it's really the backbone of our sales strategy, and it is. The data is phenomenal in how we've been able to effectively do that. So a lot of things that we're working on, market penetration, product penetration, as I mentioned, some new ventures as well. So we got some exciting new stuff that we'll hopefully be announcing soon. And then, like I said, a renewed focus on execution around the core business. We can never get complacent. We know there's more changes coming. We know there's more competition coming. And so we have to be great every single day. And that's a mantra that we preach here at the company.
That sounds like a good mantra to have. And I'm really glad you addressed that sort of gray market versus legal market, because I know I'm based in Canada and that's still an issue even here in Vancouver and in Ontario. Is there's still a few of the leftover dispensaries and license granting isn't going fast enough, and again, not enough enforcement on anything. So I would hope that maybe some legislation people are listening or will pay attention to that, because I do think that affects the industry as a whole. When there's two side-by-side industries existing at the same time, it does make it difficult to try and add legitimacy to it.
Absolutely, I agree. And, what would help as well in Canada is a little bit more free market on the ability to market and advertise, because, the thing about the alcohol industry, let's look at that, for example, nobody's going to be drinking moonshine off the street because they all know the brands and the quality of the spirits available through the legal channels. And so if these companies are allowed to get out there and really educate the public on the safety measures and the testing measures, and just the reliability and quality of the products available in the legal channels, it may discourage consumers from seeking the cheapest goods they can find, which can typically bring them to the illicit channels. So I agree with you. It's a problem in Canada, just like it is in California, and I think it's got to be a multi-pronged approach to fix it. And, you guys are looking for the country and Health Canada to step in and help. Down here in California, we're looking for the Bureau of Cannabis Control and other regulatory bodies. And I think with the amount of tax dollars at stake, you should see a ramp in efforts to fix those problems.
I would hope so. Thank you so much for the talk today. It was really informative, and I really appreciated your sort of input and outlook on the industry. It's always nice to have.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Happy to do it again, and keep up the good effort.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.